Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be doing a wrap up of some of the books that I have read recently. I'm not going to do all of them because I've literally read like 70 books since I last did a wrap up and that would take forever. So yeah, I've just got a pile of some of the books and I'm going to be talking about some of the Kindle books I've read. Just a quick catch up basically. Yeah, I just thought I'd do a quick wrap up. So thank you so much for being here and yeah, let's just get into all these great books. Okay, so I don't even know where to start. Actually, I do. Let's start with this one. Let's start on a high. So I recently read Book Lovers by Emily Henry. Hello, Trouble. Oh, big smooches. I got makeup on. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I read Book Lovers by Emily Henry and I tabbed it and I absolutely adored this book. This was a 5 out of 5. Fantastic. A beautiful, I don't even want to say romance because the romance kind of took, it was a little bit to the back of this book. It was more about the growth of the main character, Nora. Was she called Nora? Yes, Nora. And it was, yeah, just her growth and coming to terms with herself. And it was just beautiful. Beautifully written, very witty, some fantastic banter. I adored this book. It was so good. Yeah, so Book Lovers, 10 out of 10 for me. It was a great one. Really good. I then read A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. I've been wanting to read this one for a while and I didn't actually realise it was a movie until I searched it and saw that they'd made a movie of it as well. I actually really enjoyed this. It was really beautifully written. I did have a bit of a cry at the end, which like I knew it was coming anyway, but I did still have a cry. It's about a young boy dealing with something very emotionally traumatic in his life and there's a monster that calls to guide him through this traumatic experience, and very heartwarming but heartbreaking as well, and just, yeah, such a beautiful book. I would definitely recommend this one, but be prepared to possibly cry because it was very emotional. I mentioned this in a previous video, but I read The Spanish Love Deception by Eleanor Armas. Again, I tabbed this one. I read these two whilst I was away on holiday actually. Which, yeah, so I've mentioned these. Yeah, I enjoyed this. I gave it 3 out of 5. It was okay. I just found like the first third of the book very slow and boring, and it just I feel like you could have just taken that out of the book and it would have been so much better. It was just too slow at the beginning and I just kind of lost patience with it, but the two last thirds of the book were actually really good and kind of made up for it. But yeah, I gave it 3 stars. And I also find the main character, Lena, she's called Catalina. Yeah, I found her so annoying. She was so infuriating. I did not like her character at all. Yeah, so 3 out of 5. Unfortunately, I can see why people like it. It just wasn't for me. And then going down the romance train, I also then picked up The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 out of 5. My only critique was, again, the main character, Olive. I found her a little bit irritating. Just incredibly immature. Yeah, I just found it a bit irksome. But I absolutely adored, is it Adam? Yeah. I absolutely adored Adam. He really took a win for this book. I really enjoyed it. Would definitely recommend. I can see why people have a lot of hype about this, but yeah, Olive drove me crazy sometimes. But speaking of The Love Hypothesis, I then picked up Love on the Brain and I loved this book. This was 5 out of 5. It was way better than The Love Hypothesis. This is definitely, it's not often I prefer the second book of an author that comes out, but this is way better. 5 out of 5. I absolutely loved this book. 100% would recommend. It was so good, so funny and witty, and I just loved it. Oh gosh, I loved it. Yeah, so would definitely recommend Love on the Brain more than Love Hypothesis. I enjoyed them both, but Love on the Brain was way better. I then read Once Upon a Fever. Now this is an ARC that was sent to me, and I gave it 3 out of 5. I really enjoyed the world building and I enjoyed the main characters, but it was a little bit too middle grade for me at times. Yeah, I just found the plot to not be as gripping as I hoped it would be. So I enjoyed it, but yeah, 3 out of 5. Good though, and I was very grateful to receive the ARC. I then read All That's Left in the World, and I loved this. This is a really good book. It's basically end of the world, apocalypse, and 2 young boys find each other in this world, and it's really endearing, really sweet. I loved it. I really loved it. It was basically, it was really rewarding to see these 2 characters come out of their shells towards one another and be so guarded at the beginning and to really warm to each other. It was really beautiful, really well written. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, All That's Left in the World by Eric J. Brown. Really would recommend this book. I then I picked up In a Cottage in a Wood by Cass Green. I just fancied a really quick like mystery thriller read, and this really hit the spot. I think I remember I gave it 4 out of 5. Really enjoyed it. It's about a young woman who witnesses another woman's suicide, so there is a trigger warning for that, but just before the suicide she gives the woman who witnesses it the deed to her home, which is in a small cottage in a wood. And the girl goes to the cottage in a wood and creepy things start happening, and it's just a really good eerie mystery, and I really liked it. I really loved the main character as well. Just really good, yeah, a really good thrilling read. 4 out of 5. I enjoyed it. It's been some good books so far. I received an ARC and I got The Woman in the Library by Solari Gentile. I really enjoyed this as well. This is another great thriller. It's about 4 people whose worlds collided during one day in a library when they were all there together sat at the same desk, and there is a loud scream in the background and all these 4 people kind of spark up a conversation and all their stories start to intertwine, and it's just a story of, you know, trying to figure out what the scream was, scary things start happening. Really good thriller and just really interesting to see the characters develop throughout the story. Really good, really enjoyed it. So The Woman in the Library, great mystery. Yeah, I did still see the ending coming, unfortunately. So that was the only thing. But I'm terrible at trying to predict them. Did read The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. Now I actually got this out in the library. I do have a copy downstairs, but I got it out in the library as well. And I love this. This was, I think I gave it a 5 out of 5. I really enjoyed The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. Fantastic murder mystery, really interesting premise. So if you don't know, it's set in a very large isolated house where a lot of people come to this party, a lot of strangers, and during that party Evelyn Hardcastle is murdered at this party, and it's the reason it's called The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle is because the main character relives the day 7 times, and each time they relive it in a different person's body, and it's so interesting. So you play the day out 7 times within the book, but each time you see a different character's perspective, and it's really interesting, and it was fantastic. Such a good murder mystery, and the twists and turns, like, it just kept me guessing. Not once did I know what was going to happen in that book. It was really good. Loved it. I then listened on audiobook to the 3 kind of Howl Moving Castles books. So there's Howl's Moving Castle, A Castle in the Air, and House of Many Ways. Howl's Moving Castle was 5 out of 5. It's literally one of my all-time favourite movies, and I knew I was going to love the book. It was fantastic. Although I will say I did not know that Howl was Welsh in the book. So hearing his Welsh accent come out for the first time threw me. I did not know what was going on. I was like, why is he Welsh? But yeah, it makes sense because he's from Wales, but I didn't know that. But it was really good. Just brilliant. I loved it. Really loved it. Castle in the Air, I gave 3 out of 5. I didn't enjoy the main character as much, but very closely linked to Aladdin, if that kind of gives you an idea of what it's about. And then House of Many Ways, I gave 4 out of 5. Again, I really enjoyed that. Just really easy reading, middle grade fantasies, but really, really good. I really enjoyed them. I would definitely recommend them. I then read The Grip of It by Jack Jemk. I gave this 3 out of 5. It wasn't very memorable to me. I'm struggling to remember what happened. It's a haunted house. The couple move into a house and things start going wrong, but I can't for the life of me remember main plot points. And that was one of the reasons I gave it 3 out of 5, because it just didn't stick with me, and I found it so confusing at times. Like, half the time I didn't really understand what was going on, which was a shame, because I had real high hopes for this one, but it just didn't do what I wanted it to, unfortunately. So 3 out of 5. It was okay, but I probably wouldn't read it again. I then read The Witchlings Girl by Helen Coggan. I also got this one wet. I'm so sad. I took it on holiday with me, and when I put it back, I didn't realise my towel was a little bit damp, and I put the towel on top, and oh, don't you just hate it? Yeah, so I read The Witchlings Girl by Helen Coggan, and I really enjoyed this. It's about a young girl who, when she's very little, I think she was like 4 or 5, she finds out that she has the death's magic, which is very, very rare. You know, only 1 or 2 people have it in a town at a time. So she was then taken to the witchling's house. Basically, she's like the town healer. Also, the witchling is responsible for carrying a dead person's soul to the beyond, wherever they go. And it's about her growing up in this house to be a successor of the current witchling who lives there. And just a lot of stuff happens. I gave it 4 out of 5. I really enjoyed it, but I did find it a little bit... I like the story kind of... It seemed like it didn't know where it was going half the time with the story. And it spans a long time. It spans almost like her entire lifetime, which the witchlings live much shorter lifespans. They only live to like 40 or 50, but the entire book kind of spanned her whole lifetime. It felt like, anyway. So, yeah, I'd say more like 3.5 out of 5. Really enjoyed the characters, really enjoyed the premise, but I felt like the plot didn't really know where it was going half the time. I read Stardust by Neil Gaiman. This is a classic, and I loved the movie, and I really wanted to read the book. The movie very much sticks to the book premise, but the book is obviously very short, so huge points are kind of passed over very quickly. But I gave it 4 out of 5. Again, I really enjoyed it. I just wish it was fleshed out a bit more. I wish it was a bigger book. I would have enjoyed it a lot more if it was a bigger book and then we delved more into the world and 4 out of 5. I enjoyed it. I wish there was more to it. I finally read the first 3 volumes of Attack on Titan, and I loved this. It was so good. Word for word, what happens in this happens in the anime. It was fantastic, and I love the anime, so top notch. Would 100% recommend this. It was great. Speaking of graphic novels, I also read Death Note, the first one. I was a little bit disappointed by this because the premise is so cool. And, you know, it's, if you don't know, it's about a young boy who finds the Death Note, which is a journal, and if you write someone's name in it, they die, basically, and you can like say how they die, and I found that really interesting. And there's a demon attached to the Death Note. There's that creepy guy there, and I wanted to know more about him and like how the process works. But the whole thing was just the main guy trying to hide from the authorities. And he just did so many stupid things, and I'm like, why would you do that? You're literally bringing the authorities to you. Like, it didn't make sense. Anyway, yeah. So I read that. I gave it 3 out of 5? 3.5? I can't remember. Really enjoyed it. Great artwork, but just, I wanted the story to be different. I was disappointed by the way the story went. So I don't know if I'll continue the series, to be honest. So I'm just going to go on to my Goodreads now. To look at some other books that I have read or listened to or read on Kindle that I don't have physical copies in front of me. I read 13 Stories by Jonathan Sims, and I really enjoyed this. This was a horror. It was like 13 short stories, but they were all set within this one building where loads of weird things are happening, and they were all related, but they were 13 individual people. And then all these 13 individual people were invited to a dinner party in the penthouse suite of the person who owned the building, and during that dinner party, the guy who owns the building ended up dying, and you're figuring out what happened basically. But it was really good. I gave it 4 out of 5. I really enjoyed it. A lot of really creepy individual stories, and they were all about half an hour each, which was really nice, so you could kind of dip in and out. So it was like a lot of short stories, but they're all connected, but I really enjoyed it. I listened to the Girl from the Well duology from Rinchpecco. I loved this. Oh my god, it was one of the best duologies I've read in a long time. Very much like The Girl from the Ring. Yeah, it was really fantastic. A really interesting premise is the first book was from the point of view of the actual ghost. So you literally a POV of a 300-year-old ghost who is out for revenge, murdering murderers basically who have harmed and murdered children. And it was really interesting. Some really dark moments. A lot of Japanese folklore as well, which I love. I love Asian mythology, and I really, really loved this duology. It was so good. And the audiobooks were really fantastic as well. I would 100% recommend this. It was such a good duology, so good. Oh, I read A Duel with the Vampire Lord, which was the Married to Magic number 3. So the first one was A Deal with the Elf King, and then there was A Dance with the Fey Prince, I think. And then the third one was A Duel with the Vampire Lord. There's going to be 4 in the series, so there's one more coming out, and this is by Elisa Kova, and I've loved every single one of these books. They're very good. I really love the writing. I love all the characters every time. Each story and each plot is so brilliantly developed, and the world is fantastic. It's one big world where all the stories are connected, but one is with elves and one is with fae and then one is with vampires, so it's really good. I would 100% recommend this series. I've really enjoyed them. A Duel with the Vampire Lord was just as good as the other 2, and I cannot wait for the 4th one. I think it's about sirens, which is going to be cool because I've only read one book about a siren, which was How to Kill a Kingdom by Alexander Christo, which I love that book as well, but I'm really looking forward to that one. They're all YA fantasy romance, but there's huge world building and great plot as well. It's just top notch, really good. Listened to The Will and the Wild by Charlie N. Holmberg, and this was a really interesting take on weird demon mythology. Yeah, really enjoyed it. It was a enemies to lovers romance between a demon and a human, but just really the demons are really interesting. So within this book, the demons are called the Mistings, and they come from a different world. And within the Wildwood, which is the main girl's home, is where the Mistings roam, and she goes out and she finds a Misting and she makes a deal with one, trapping him there. Yeah, it's fantastic. A really good enemies to lovers romance, but with a good bit of plot as well. Really interesting, really enjoyed it. It was a 4 out of 5 for me. Would recommend. I read Gallant by V. Schwab, which I think is right there, but I'm not going to get it down because it's going to topple my books. I had a bit of a love-hate relationship with Gallant. It was so slow. It was so slow-paced, and I was just desperate for something to happen. But that being said, I really loved the characters and the world building. The house and the writing style was so beautiful, and the artwork was beautiful, so it kept me hooked to read more. But the plot was just a little bit too slow paced for me, and I just wanted a bit more from the actual plot itself, which was such a shame because the run up and the world that V. Schwab had created and the characters was so beautiful, and I just wanted a little bit more from the plot, so I was a bit disappointed, but I still loved it. So yeah, I gave it 3.5, but I was kind of toying between that and 4. But yeah, I loved it, but I also really was disappointed by it, if that makes any sense. I listened to the Divergent trilogy, which I'd never actually read before, which is crazy because it was a huge series back in the day. But I didn't used to read a lot when I was younger, when I was a teenager myself, and I'm trying to read all the books that I missed out on in the past. So I listened to the Divergent series, and it was okay. It was okay. It was okay. I wasn't super hooked. I think I gave them all 3 out of 5. That ending though, Was that a bad ending or what? To Allegiant. Oh my god, I think it was possibly one of the worst endings to a series I've ever read in my life. I was so disappointed by it. Like, I didn't know. Apparently it's a huge, well-known fact that the ending to Allegiant is terrible, but I didn't know that. And God, was it so disappointing. I was like, is that it? Like, all this build-up for what? Ugh. Yeah, so I'm a little bit salty about that. The first book was the best, and then it kind of just went downhill from there. But, yeah, I like the world. It was a really cool idea. Don't have a great deal to say about it. I'm sorry if I'm insulting like your favourite series, but it just, maybe if I'd read it like 15 years ago or whenever it first came out, I would really like it. But yeah, that ending, man, that ending's got me salty. Oh, I read That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon and That Time I Got Drunk and Yeeted a Love Potion at a Werewolf, which are two fantasy romance books. Really funny, great banter, and they're quite short novels as well, so really quick and easy to read. I really enjoyed them. I gave them both 4 out of 5 stars. Yeah, really liked it. Loved the characters. Loved the main characters of both as well, the women. Really enjoyed that series, and I think there's more coming as well, which is great. I did read the novella as well, which was called Mistletoe, and that was like 40 pages long, but it was like a Christmas special set within the world as well, and I really enjoyed that one as well. A bit spicy at times, just be warned. I also finished the Deliciously Dark Fairy Tales series, which started with, I've forgotten the name, A Ruin of Roses, which I don't know if I've spoken about. Gosh, I've just realised they pumped out these books. The first one was 8th of October 2021, and the second was 12th of November. That's literally just over a month. So I read all 4 of this series. There's A Ruin of Roses, A Throne of Ruin, A Kingdom of Ruin, and A Queen of Ruin. I really enjoyed this series. I kind of had a love-hate relationship with it sometimes, but it definitely got better as the series progressed. Definitely spicy at times, but the plot was really good. Really enjoyed it. Yeah, it was a good series, and it's all on Kindle Unlimited as well, which is great. And I would definitely recommend it. It was started off as a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but just grew from there, and the world got bigger and more characters got introduced and the plot thickened. It was really good. I actually really enjoyed it, and there were some characters that were absolutely hilarious. I will say that the writing style is incredibly crude, which I struggled with at first. I did struggle with the writing style a little bit just because of how openly crude it was, but yeah, it got a little bit less as you went on, but it is a spicy book, so I don't know what I expected, but I just didn't expect it like all the time. But yeah, I did read those, and that was really good, and that's it, I think. There are others, but those are all like the main ones, and then obviously there's all these books which I mentioned in my Halloween's spooky reads, but I loved all of these books. There was Near the Bone by Christina Henry, 5 out of 5. Haunting of Lee Harker, 4 out of 5. Gallows Hill, 4 out of 5. From Below, 5 out of 5, and a new favourite, Darcy Coates' book, which I've read all of them. Carrie by Stephen King, again, an absolute classic. I gave that 4 out of 5. And then House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland, which was a 4 out of 5. Very weird. But yeah, if you want to hear more about these, then feel free to look at my previous video, but really enjoyed those as well. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that's everything. There are a few others. Oh, I do this absolute behemoth. I didn't read the whole thing. This is a whole trilogy, and I read the first book. So I read that much. Oh, no. Oh, we're getting there. Oh, yeah, there you go. So I read the first book in the trilogy. I don't know if I'm going to continue this. This is The Sword of Shannara by Terry Brooks. It's very classic, big, epic fantasy, but I just don't really think it was for me. There were like no female characters at all, so I didn't really like connect that great, and it was literally like just a Lord of the Rings ripoff, which sounds really bad, but there was literally a great mysterious wizard, a very small humanoid type thing that had to find an object of power that would save the world, there was a dwarf, there was elves. Like, it literally couldn't have been more of a Lord of the Rings like rip-off, which sounds really bad. Yeah, so I don't know if I'll finish this series or not. But it's like there's loads of books. Like, I've got another 2 of these like trilogy books. But yeah, it's a big book, and it took me so long just to read the first one. And like, do I really want to attempt to read all the others when I didn't even enjoy it that much? I think I gave it 3 out of 5. I don't know if I'm going to continue this yet. We'll see how I'm feeling, but I just feel like there are other big fantasies that I could read that I would enjoy a lot more. But yes, that is kind of a wrap up of most of the things that I've read recently. There are probably a few that I've forgotten or missed. I read a lot, so I just lose track of what I've read, to be honest. Yeah, but those are some of the great books that I have read recently, and but I really sincerely hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you may have found some books that you really wanted to read. And yeah, I will see all of you lovely people hopefully in the next one. Alright, bye guys.